The atmosphere in the executive boardroom was thick with anticipation. The polished mahogany table reflected the bright overhead lights, and the soft hum of the air conditioning was the only sound breaking the silence. I stood at the head of the table, my hand resting on the presenter remote. On the massive digital screen behind me, a slide detailed 3 years of my laboratory research. This was the molecular stabilization protocol, a breakthrough designed to shield targeted medications from degrading in the human bloodstream. This innovation was supposed to secure the financial future of Nexus Pharmaceuticals. I was in the middle of explaining the final clinical trial data when the heavy double doors swung open. Chloe Harrington walked in with absolute confidence. She wore a tailored cream blazer that probably cost more than my monthly rent, and her expression was empty of any hesitation. As the daughter of our chief executive officer, Richard Harrington, she was accustomed to owning every room she entered. She walked straight to the front of the room, ignoring the fact that I was speaking. I stood frozen, my fingers still hovering over the button. The 6 key investors, who had been nodding with interest at my presentation, immediately straightened in their leather chairs, redirecting their attention to the executive's daughter. "I am sorry to interrupt, Evelyn," Chloe said, though her tone held no genuine apology. She did not even look at me. Her father, Richard, sat at the end of the table, offering a supportive smile. Chloe continued, addressing the room, "But there has been a major change of plans. My father has asked me to share some exciting developments. We have designed an alternative strategic approach that shows significantly higher commercial viability." My throat felt dry as she gestured toward the technician to override my screen. With a quick tap on her tablet, my years of hard work vanished, replaced by her colorful slides. She leaned closer as she passed me, her voice dropping to a whisper that only I could hear. "We do not need your concepts anymore," she murmured. Then, raising her voice for the benefit of the investors, she said, "Evelyn has laid some basic groundwork, but we are pivoting in a much more innovative direction." I stood there, feeling invisible, as she began presenting slides that looked identical to the raw research notes I had compiled over the past several months. These were concepts I had written down in my private journals, ideas she had somehow acquired. When she finished, the room erupted in polite applause. Gregory Reynolds, the lead representative of the investment group, actually stood up to shake her hand. "This direction seems far more profitable." I packed my laptop with deliberate, mechanical movements. No one noticed as I reached into my pocket, pulled out my security keycard, and laid it quietly on the edge of the mahogany table. I looked toward Richard Harrington, the chief executive officer who had spent the last several years telling me I was the future of the company, looked directly through me as if I were a stranger. I looked at Chloe, who was basking in the praise of the billionaires. "Enjoy the funding," I said softly. My voice was surprisingly steady, though my heart was hammering against my ribs. I walked out of the boardroom, down the long corridor, and took the elevator to the lobby. The silence of the garage was a relief. As soon as I sat in my car, my hands began to shake. 3 years of my life, my scientific breakthrough, had been stolen in front of my eyes. But I knew something they did not. I knew exactly what Chloe had taken, and I knew what she had missed. I had 48 hours before they realized their mistake. I drove back to my small apartment, my mind working through the math of my exit. My name is Evelyn Vance. I do not come from a family of wealth or influence. My mother worked double shifts as a house cleaner, and I spent my childhood studying at kitchen tables in rented apartments. I worked my way through college with scholarships and waitressing jobs, spending my nights in university labs, assisting on research that other people claimed as their own. When Richard Harrington hired me 4 years ago, I thought it was my big break. He told me he valued independent thinkers. For the first 3 years, I worked 16-hour days, dedicating myself entirely to molecular biology. Then Chloe arrived 8 months ago. She was given the title of Director of Strategic Innovation, despite having no background in chemistry or biology. I tried to be helpful, explaining my research and showing her our laboratory protocols. I believed she wanted to learn. "You are talented, Evelyn," she had told me once, "but you do not understand how the business side operates." I did not realize that was her way of telling me she was planning to take what was mine. I unlocked my apartment door and was greeted by Galileo, my gray cat, who rubbed against my shins. I picked him up, trying to calm my breathing. My phone buzzed on the counter. It was a text from Sarah Jenkins, my colleague at the lab. "What happened?" Sarah wrote. "Everyone is talking, but no one has details." Before I could reply, a message from Richard Harrington arrived. "We need to talk immediately," it read. I turned my phone off, set it aside, and opened my laptop. It was time to begin the next phase. I had work to do, and the clock was ticking. The next morning arrived with a gray, quiet light. I dressed in a formal charcoal suit, preparing myself for the confrontation I knew was coming. I had spent the night organizing my files and verifying the legal status of my independent terrorist research. When I arrived at the Nexus Pharmaceuticals Research Park, the security guard at the gate gave me a puzzled look as he checked my ID. "I thought you walked out yesterday, Evelyn," he said, looking at the screen. "I have not officially resigned," I replied with a calm smile. The atmosphere inside the main laboratory was charged with anxiety. As I walked past the cubicles, conversations ceased, and my colleagues quickly averted their eyes. I walked directly to my personal workbench and began packing my personal belongings, placing my reference books and coffee mug into a small cardboard box. Sarah Jenkins appeared at my elbow, her voice low and filled with concern. "Richard has been looking for you since late yesterday," Sarah whispered. "He is completely furious. The lab team has been trying to run the stabilization test all morning, and nothing is working. What did you do to the database?" I placed a textbooks on cellular membranes into my box. "I did not do anything to their database, Sarah," I said quietly. "I simply left." "Evelyn, you do not understand," Sarah warned, glancing over her shoulder. "Richard is threatening to sue everyone if the investors back out. He is blaming you." Before I could answer, Richard Harrington's voice boomed across the laboratory floor. "Evelyn, in my office now," he ordered. He stood at the entrance of the executive suite, his face red with anger, his expensive suit doing nothing to hide his panic. I walked toward his office, keeping my posture straight and my expression neutral. I could feel the eyes of every technician tracking my movements. I walked into the office, and Richard slammed the door behind me. "Where is the file?" he demanded, not even offering me a seat. "We are supposed to demonstrate the compound to Gregory Reynolds and the investment board in less than an hour. The lab team says the data tables are complete, but when they run the physical simulation, the compound disintegrates within 5 seconds. What did you delete?" I looked at him calmly. "I did not delete a single file from the company database, Richard. That would be a violation of my contract, and I am far too professional for that." "Then why is it not working?" he shouted, slamming his hand on his desk. "You were the only one who could run the stabilization phase." At that moment, the door opened and Chloe stepped in. Her confident expression from the previous day was gone, replaced by a tense, nervous energy. "Daddy, the research team is saying they need the specific activation sequence," she said, stopping when she saw me. "Why is she here?" I turned to Chloe. "I am here to collect my things, Chloe. Since you told me yesterday that my concepts are no longer required, I assumed you had everything under control." Chloe glared at me. "You did something to the protocol. We copied your exact notes from the lab logs, but the compound is not staying stable." I smiled, a slow, deliberate expression. "Perhaps science requires actual comprehension, Chloe. You can copy a recipe, but that does not make you a chef. You presented my research as your own project. Surely you know how to stabilize the molecular chain." Richard stepped between us, trying to regain control. "Evelyn, let us be reasonable. The investors are arriving. If we do not show them a working compound today, this entire funding round will fail. Tell us what we need to do, and we can discuss a promotion. We can give you a significant raise and name you as a co-inventor." I looked at Richard, remembering the nights I had spent working late while he took his daughter to expensive dinners. "I am afraid that is impossible, Richard. All the work I completed during my employment hours is on your servers. If your team cannot make it work, that is an operational issue, not my responsibility." "Are you refusing to help us?" Chloe hissed, her hand shaking. "You are sabotaging this company." "No, I am simply leaving," I said, picking up my small box of belongings. "I am no longer an employee of Nexus Pharmaceuticals. I submitted my resignation in writing last night, effective immediately." Richard took a step toward me, his eyes narrowing. You cannot just walk away with our research. We own everything you created here. I stopped at the door, looking back at him. You own the files on your server, Richard. But you do not own my mind, and you certainly do not own the independent patents I filed on my own time. Have a wonderful meeting with the investors. I walked out of his office, leaving them standing in the middle of their growing disaster. As I walked through the glass lobby, I could hear the distant sound of Richard's voice shouting for his assistance. I felt a sense of freedom that I had not experienced in years. I got into my car, started the engine, and checked the time. It was 11 o'clock in the morning. The investment group was scheduled to arrive at Nexus in exactly 30 minutes. I knew they would not find what they sought. At 1 o'clock in the afternoon, my phone rang. The screen displayed a number I did not recognize, but I had been expecting the call. I answered on the third ring. Evelyn Vance, I said. Evelyn, this is Gregory Reynolds. The lead investor's voice sounded strained, a sharp contrast to his warm tone in the boardroom yesterday. I am currently sitting in the conference room at Nexus Pharmaceuticals, and the situation here is highly concerning. Richard and Chloe are attempting to explain a technical delay, but my team is telling me the demonstration was a complete failure. I am sorry to hear that, Gregory, I replied, sitting at my kitchen table. But as of yesterday evening, I am no longer associated with Nexus. I understand that now, Gregory said. I also understand that you were the lead scientist on this project. We are prepared to invest $80 million into this technology, but we need to know if it actually works. I would like to meet with you immediately. We can meet at the coffee shop across the street from your offices, I suggested. I can be there in 20 minutes. When I arrived at the quiet cafe, Gregory was already waiting in a corner booth. He had taken off his jacket, and his tie was slightly loosened. He looked like a man who had just realized he was about to make a massive financial mistake. I ordered a green tea and sat down opposite him. What is happening at Nexus, Evelyn? Gregory asked, leaning forward. Richard claims you are withholding proprietary information. I pulled a document folder from my bag and laid it on the table between us. I am withholding nothing, Gregory. Every line of code and every chemical formula I developed while on the company clock remains on their servers. The problem is that Chloe Harrington stole my unfinished research notes and attempted to present them as a completed product. Gregory frowned, opening the folder. What do you mean, unfinished? The molecular stabilization process requires a carrier peptide to prevent the compound from breaking down in the bloodstream, I explained. The version Nexus owns is unstable because they do not have the activation sequence. I discovered the correct sequence 3 weeks ago, working in my home laboratory using my own resources. So Nexus does not own the complete technology? Gregory asked, his eyes scanning the documents. They do not, I said. I filed the patents for the completed process independently under my own name and my new company, Veritas Biosciences, 3 weeks ago. I purchased my own equipment and conducted the final validation tests outside of my working hours. Richard will claim that Nexus owns the intellectual property because you were their employee, Gregory pointed out. He can claim whatever he wishes, I replied, sliding a second document across the table. But my employment contract clearly states that any research conducted outside of laboratory hours, using independent funding and targeting separate chemical pathways, remains the property of the scientist. My lawyer drafted this contract carefully when I was hired, and I followed every rule to the letter. Gregory looked at the patent applications and the legal validation documents. A faint smile appeared on his face. You have been planning this for a long time, Evelyn. I did not plan to leave, Gregory, I said honestly. I planned to protect my work. I saw how Richard was positioning his daughter to take over the department. I caught Chloe in my office after hours on 3 separate occasions, going through my desk. I even have the security footage, which I requested from the building management before I resigned. I knew she was going to steal my research, so I ensured she could only steal the incomplete version. Gregory leaned back in its booth, staring at the documents. This is a complete disaster for Richard. The board is going to be furious. We were ready to sign the contract today. If you sign that contract with Nexus, you are investing in a company that does not own the technology, I warned him. And more importantly, you are investing in leadership that is willing to commit a serious breach of fiduciary duty to promote a family member. Richard knew his daughter did not understand the science, yet he allowed her to present it anyway. Gregory nodded slowly. Our investment group cannot be associated with this kind of liability. If the technology is not functional, the company is worth a fraction of its current valuation. So, what are you going to do? I asked, taking a sip of my tea. Gregory gathered the papers and placed them back in the folder. I am going to call an emergency meeting with the other investors. We need to verify your patents and your technical data independently. If everything you have shown me is accurate, we will be withdrawing our offer from Nexus immediately. And Veritas Biosciences? I asked. If the technology works, we will invest in the person who actually created it, Gregory said, standing up and extending his hand. I will call you by 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, Evelyn. I shook his hand, feeling a quiet surge of confidence. As I watched him walk out of the cafe, I knew the real battle was about to begin. Richard Harrington would not accept this defeat easily, but I was prepared for whatever he had planned. By the following morning, the tension had escalated into a full legal war. I was sitting in the office of my attorney, Sarah's brother, who had agreed to represent me. My phone was buzzing constantly with alerts. The industry news blogs were already reporting rumors of trouble at Nexus Pharmaceuticals. The company's stock price had fallen by 15% in early trading as rumors spread that the $80 million investment round was falling apart. Our primary defense is solid, my lawyer explained, reviewing the stack of patent filings. We have clear evidence that you funded the final research phase yourself. But Richard is attempting to get an emergency injunction to prevent you from using the carrier peptide. He is claiming it is a derivative of Nexus property. We have a countersuit ready, I replied. Under Title 17, United States Code, Section 106, I hold the exclusive copyrights to the written manuals, laboratory protocols, and data tables that I authored. Nexus has been using my copyrighted materials in their presentations without my permission. Additionally, we have proof of laboratory forgery. What do you mean by forgery? My lawyer asked, looking up from his notes. I pulled out a printout of the lab validation logs from the previous month. Chloe Harrington signed off on 3 major validation tests, claiming she had personally verified the chemical reactions in the lab. But the security logs show she was not even in the building on those days. She forged my signature and the assistant's signature on the official safety documents to make it look like she was running the project. That is a direct violation of California Penal Code Section 470, my lawyer said, his eyes widening. That is forgery, and it is a criminal offense. If she submitted those forged logs to the investors or any regulatory agency, she is in serious legal trouble. I want Richard and the board to see these documents before they proceed with the injunction, I said. I want them to understand that if they press this issue, we will file formal criminal charges against Chloe and sue the company for a breach of fiduciary duty. Richard promoted his daughter, knowing she was falsifying laboratory records. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, my lawyer sent the legal packet to the Nexus Board of Directors. The response was almost immediate. The emergency injunction hearing, which had been scheduled for the next day, was abruptly canceled. An hour later, Sarah Jenkins called me from the Nexus parking lot. Evelyn, the entire board of directors just arrived at the building, Sarah said, her voice shaking with excitement. They called Richard and Chloe into a closed-door meeting. People are saying Richard is going to be removed. Is everything okay in the lab? I asked. Toby Miller was just fired by Richard for refusing to sign a backdated laboratory log, Sarah reported. But the board intervened and reinstated Toby immediately. Everyone knows Chloe forged the documents now. The research director is resigning, and 3 other senior scientists have already packed their bags. We want to come work for you, Evelyn. I would be honored to have all of you on the team. The network showed a brief clip of Richard Harrington leaving the building, shielding his face from the cameras as he walked to his car. The commentator noted that the company's valuation had dropped significantly, and there were rumors of a major leadership shakeup. My phone rang again. It was Gregory Reynolds. Evelyn, the investors have completed our review of your patents and the technical data, Gregory said. Our independent scientific advisors have confirmed that your carrier peptide is a completely novel design, and your patents are ironclad. We have also received copies of the legal documents your attorney sent to the Nexus board. What is the board's position? I asked. They are terrified of a lawsuit, Gregory revealed. If the forgery charges become public, the company's reputation will be destroyed, and they could face federal investigations. The board has offered Richard Harrington a choice: resign quietly or face immediate termination and legal action. He is going to resign, and Chloe? She is being dismissed, and the board is cooperating with our group to ensure there are no further claims on your intellectual property. We are ready to move forward with Veritas Biosciences. We want to discuss the terms of our investment. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the last 3 years finally lifting. I am ready when you are, Gregory. Let us build something that actually works. We scheduled the meeting for the next morning. As I hung up, I looked around my small apartment. It was quiet, but it no longer felt like a place of retreat. It felt like the starting point of something historic. I knew the road ahead would be challenging, but for the first time in my career, I was in control of my own destiny. The morning sun illuminated the clean, open spaces of our new laboratory facility at Veritas Biosciences. The smell of fresh paint still lingered, but the scientific equipment was already in place. Centrifuges, molecular scanners, and rows of pristine glass beakers stood ready on the black bench tops. It was a modest setup compared to the massive corporate labs at Nexus, but every piece of equipment here was dedicated to genuine science. Sarah Jenkins and Toby Miller were already busy calibrating the primary mass spectrometer, their faces relaxed and smiling. 2 other senior technicians who had left Nexus were organizing the chemical storage units. We were a team of 4, but we possessed more collective knowledge of the molecular stabilization process than anyone else in the industry. At 10 o'clock, a sleek black sedan pulled up to the front entrance. Gregory Reynolds and Lydia Bennett, another prominent investor, walked into the lab. They did not wear the formal, rigid expressions they had carried in the Nexus boardroom. They looked around our space with genuine curiosity and respect. "It is a pleasure to see you in your own element, Evelyn," Lydia said, shaking my hand warmly. "This facility is impressive." "It is focused on the work," I replied, guiding them toward our small conference room. "We do not have corporate suites, but we have a functional prototype." We sat down around a simple oak table and Gregory opened a leather folder. "We are prepared to offer Veritas Biosciences an initial investment of $60 million, he announced. "This funding will be released in 3 phases, based on clinical milestones. Once the first phase is validated, we are committed to adding an additional $40 million, bringing the total investment to $100 million. "And the ownership structure?" I asked, looking at my lawyer who sat beside me. "You will retain 51% of the voting shares and the position of Chief Executive Officer," Lydia explained. "We want you to maintain scientific control. We have learned the hard way that when business people attempt to manage the science without understanding it, everyone loses." I reviewed the terms sheet, my eyes scanning the clauses carefully. The contract was clean, devoid of the predatory ownership language that Nexus had used to control its scientists. It was a partnership built on mutual respect and shared goals. I signed my name at the bottom of the page, followed by Gregory and Lydia. "Welcome to Veritas Biosciences," I said, smiling as we shook hands. As the investors left to finalize the bank transfers, my lawyer handed me a courier envelope that had arrived that morning. It was from the Nexus Board of Directors. Inside was a formal letter confirming they had waived all claims to the carrier peptide and the molecular stabilization process. Attached to the letter was a small personal item, my original research journal, the one Chloe had stolen from my desk months ago. A brief note from Richard Harrington was tucked inside. "You won," the note read in his familiar, sharp handwriting. "Was it worth the destruction of my family's company?" I closed the journal, feeling the worn leather under my fingers. The destruction of Nexus was not my doing. It was the inevitable result of his own choices. Richard had chosen to prioritize his daughter's ambition over scientific integrity. He had chosen to ignore the laws protecting intellectual property, and he had allowed a major breach of fiduciary duty to occur under his supervision. The collapse of his company was not my revenge. It was simply the consequence of his actions. Sarah walked into the conference room, holding 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to me and looked at the journal on the table. "Is that what I think it is?" she asked. "My original notes," I said, placing the journal in my bag. The board returned it. Sarah smiled. "Toby just finished the validation run on the first batch of the stabilized compound. The carrier peptide held the structure perfectly for 72 hours. No degradation, no structural failure. It is completely stable." I felt a deep, quiet satisfaction settle in my chest. The science had spoken, and it had proven what I knew all along. The truth could not be hidden behind a flashy slide deck or a corporate title. If you have ever found yourself standing up to someone who tried to take credit for your hard work, you know how difficult that first step can be. Sometimes, the most powerful response to injustice is not to fight on their level, but to build your own path to a place they can never reach. I walked back out into the laboratory, ready to begin the real work of changing lives through science.